Great. Welcome, everyone. We have Rishad's going to talk, and then we have another special session afterwards, and then we'll go in the reception, where the authors will be signing some books. I'll tell you a little story later, but I'll save that in terms of the great book bandits from books, but we still have a fair bit left. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed Rishad's talk this morning. And it's interesting. We sort of, remember I mentioned the Academy event that we did in San Ramon in October. We're doing another one next October, this October 13th to 17th. We actually field tested some sessions inside that as a bit of a practice run, a test run. And one of them was basically, we had Rishad open in the morning on day one and close on this session that you'll hear next on upgrading your mental operating systems. So without any further ado, the man of many slides, Rishad Tobaccowala. Rishad?
Perfect. Thank you very much. So this is again slideless, but one of the key things here is I'm going to talk about how to upgrade your mental operating system, and I'll be done at 5:05. 30 minutes, right? So that's time for the 5.
That's our plan,
perfect.
right?
So, and then if there are questions at the end, I'll try to be done in 20, 25 minutes. So all of you all probably have a mobile device. And the mobile device you have has an operating system. And once upon a time, I used to have both operating systems, but now as a self-employed,
Oh, so
now
after Rishad is done,
but I
you're
used to have
taking up the
Android,
reception upstairs.
OS and iOS. So I believe on Android, you're on the 15th operating system. And on iOS, we're on the 18th operating system. How many times in the last 18 years have you upgraded your mental operating system? So you're trying to actually keep up with your mobile device. So your mobile device is getting smarter every year. Are you? It's a very simple question, right? So I keep telling people, if we want to catch up and stay abreast of the world, we have to take time to upgrade our mental operating system. And so a lot of people say, but I do not have time to do what you are telling me to do. Because my advice on how to upgrade your mental operating system is going to be more than the next line. But if I were to say one line on how to upgrade your mental operating system, spend an hour every day learning. That's it. So if you spend an hour every day learning, you'll upgrade your mental operating system. At which stage, it sounds really simple, spend an hour every day learning. Many, many people, busy professionals like yourself, look at me and they basically say, you don't have a job, therefore you have time to do this nonsense. I barely have time to get my job done, look after my family, do a whole bunch of other stuff. And now you're saying I got to spend an hour every day upgrading my mental operating system. And I say, yeah, I think you should do that. And they said, you do realize we don't have time. So then I reframe the question the following way. By telling me that you don't have an hour every day to upgrade your mental operating system, you are telling me that you're okay being irrelevant. That's all you're saying. You're saying, I'm proud to be irrelevant. And I'm proud to grow even more irrelevant every day because I have no time to prevent my irrelevance. That's what somebody is saying. So I say, you don't have time to learn every day. You're basically saying you are proud of your irrelevance. So I said, whatever you're doing, I'm sure it's far more important than preventing your own irrelevance, because if it wasn't far more important, you would spend the time pursue your irrelevance. You see the way to look at it? So the whole idea is very much like when people tell me change is good, and I basically tell them, I disagree. I think change sucks. Okay? And they say, what is wrong with you? I said, I hate change. I worked for the same company for 37 years. I've lived in the same city because it's so nice and warm called Chicago for 44. I met my wife 51 years ago. You're looking at someone who's anti-change. You go look at my LinkedIn profile and it says, not bad for someone who's anti-change, what he does. And that's not because I like change. In fact, the more successful you are, the harder it is to change. Because guess what happens when you change or try to change? You have to learn something new, right? So when was the last time you learned something new? Let's say you learned how to ride a bicycle. You'd fall down, graze your knee. If your friends were around you, they'd make fun of you. And in effect, now you're senior. You try to learn, you make mistakes, and everybody says, Rishad was stupid and now he's proven to us he's stupid. Look, he doesn't even know what he's doing. And as a result, what we do is we fake learning. And we fake it with buzzword bingo. And buzzword bingo, at any given time, today is probably AI, machine learning, inference time, whatever we say. In the past, it was personalization, platform, whatever it was. There's like 15 or 20 buzzwords, and we drop them, and we use them. And everybody shares these buzzwords. As someone who's somewhat confused, I'd say, can you explain to me in English what you just said? Because I often see slides, and I say, if you remove all the buzzwords, you only have and or the. Right? So what is that? And that's because it's very hard, so we fake it. But the problem simply is, while change does suck, irrelevance is even worse. So it's never whether change is good or bad. If you don't change, you get irrelevant. It's not whether you want to learn or don't want to learn. If you decide not to learn, you are irrelevant. And more now than ever before. So you might say, why is this guy calling us irrelevant? I'm not calling you irrelevant. I'm just saying people who don't learn become irrelevant. And I've lived through this because I had a 37-year career. And in 1993, 94, I started basically saying, hey, we got to pay attention to this thing called the World Wide Web. Now, at that particular stage, I was almost 40 years old. And a lot of some of my colleagues basically said, we'll be retired before any of this thing happens. Why bother? 5 years later, none of them had a job. Right? Then came social and mobile and the same thing. Oh, who cares? Who cares? Well, guess what? Our clients cared. And our clients said, who is this bozo running my business? They don't know anything. How can they guide me into the future if they themselves aren't using any of this? And that's when I began to learn that whether I care or I didn't care, we all work. Sooner or later, someone pays the bills, and they happen to be called clients of one sort or the other. And as far as I know, if you're a good company, your clients tend to be smarter than you because you have great clients. And great clients tend to be very smart. Now, they can be less smart in certain areas, but you can always be. But how do you make sure that you remain smart? And if you actually ask a client, if you give them enough alcohol, these are the 3 questions they'll tell you, okay? The questions they'll ask you. I'm sure they ask you these. It's the third one they may or may not ask, or you're not listening, by which time you've had too much to drink, so you're not listening to what's happening. So question number 1 they ask is, do I have the relevant business model? Am I organized correctly? So you say, let me explain. Question number 2 is, do I have the right partners? Do I have the right organizational design? Do I have the right suppliers? Do I have the right talent? And you say, I think we can help you on that. Night proceeds. Then they ask the third question. And the third question will usually be about you. And you'll get all excited thinking it's about you, but it isn't about you. They're still asking about themselves, but they're asking in a sheepish way. So they would ask me, can you explain to me how you did the following, which is you built the case for cable television? Literally, in my company they didn't believe in cable television. They believed in ABC, CBS, NBC. And this was the 80s. So I brought in Ted Turner and said there's this thing called Turner Broadcasting System, which eventually, parts of it then became CNN. I obviously said there's this thing called America Online. Then I said, here's this thing called the World Wide Web. And then these days I go running around talking about AI. And so people look at me and they say, how do you do it? Now I thought they were asking about how I do it, but they aren't really asking about that. They're asking about themselves. And the real question your clients are asking is, am I still relevant? Or they're asking, who can take me to the future and keep me relevant? Individually, as a person, forget my company, right? Forget my everything else. I am scared to death that I'm going to become irrelevant. How are you not being irrelevant? That's the question. And my answer is, ladies and gentlemen, here's what you do. Spend an hour learning. That's number one. Number two, once in a while, but not all the time, build a case for the exact opposite of what you believe. What do I mean by that? Outside of certain scientific principles, so don't build a case for the exact opposite of whether gravity exists or does not exist. You can jump out of the window, you're going to die, so don't try it, okay? But in most other cases, especially in the world of business or in the world of anything, whatever your perspective is, there should be a case why the opposite is possibly true. And if you have no idea on how to build the exact opposite case, do you actually know your case at all? Do you know your case at all? Because let's say you're trying to convince a client on something, you're trying to sell something, you're trying to close a deal. There is somebody else also trying to close the deal. There's another company also trying to sell their technology, right? And they're sitting out there and saying, how do we bring Rishad and his company down to its knees? Let's figure out their vulnerabilities. And let's sell against that. And if I know how they're going to sell against me, at least I know how to protect myself. So if you can't build the exact opposite case, you don't even know how to attack yourself. How do you know you're good? So many of you remember the movie Star Wars. This is episode 4, New Hope. It was called Star Wars 1, but apparently it was episode 4, A New Hope. At the end of it, spoiler alert, Luke Skywalker finds a way to blow up the Death Star. How? Because he knows his vulnerability. How? Because he's been there. So who do you think knows your company, your team, and your vulnerability better than anybody else does? You do. Attack it. Build a case for the exact opposite of what you're recommending and what you believe. So you come at it from a completely different angle, which is attacking it. Make sense? So few people do that. Now, obviously, there are a lot of people who do Team A, Team B exercises, but the other is, it's not Team A, Team B. I'm completely wrong. Maybe the exact opposite is true. And the reason that is very important is as you get more senior, and as we live in today's media environment, what we find is we are surrounded by things that agree with us. So we hang out with people like ourselves, just so you know. We live in neighborhoods like ourselves. If you get very senior, you can actually hide from everybody. You go into special lines in airports. You go to special suites or special sections in places. You stay in special type of hotels. And all of a sudden, you live in your own little bubble. You select your media based on what you agree with. Everything digitally online is optimized and personalized to your tastes. So what happens? Sooner or later, anybody successful and senior begins to believe that their flatulence smells like Chanel 5. It happens all the time. And when I go to boards, I basically let them know, you board, or you leader, or you managing director, you are amazing. Your company is amazing. They like me. That's nice. Good person that they've sent. He gets it. In fact, you're so amazing, you cannot be defeated. I really like this person. Maybe we should buy his book. And then I have this next line. Unless you decide to defeat yourself. And they say, wait, what? I said, you cannot be beaten unless you decide to defeat yourself. So they said, I can't be beaten unless I defeat myself. I said, yeah, nobody can beat you. Only you can beat yourself. Only your company can beat yourself. And they say, like, and how? And I say, by not listening to people who tell you how to beat you in your company. By not taking outside signals seriously till they're too late. Give you an example. Some of the best and smartest automobile manufacturers in the world come from the same country where SAP is based, Germany. Right? So you can make a whole bunch of fun of the American car industry, but you can't make much fun of the German car industry. Until now. Again, you can't make fun of them, but there's a question. And because every car industry, and when I was working at Publicis, we had 7 of the top 10 OEMs in the world. So we had, and we still have, BMW as a client, we have Toyota as a client, we have General Motors as a client, 7 of the top 10. And because I was the strategist of the group, I worked across the group and not on a client, I could visit them all. And I ended up visiting 5 of the 7. And what I understood is all of them, all were asking the same questions. And in hindsight, and I wasn't either an automobile person, nor did I have the wherewithal to ask the right question. So I wasn't asking the question either. But I went just to figure out something about something else, and I wasn't an auto industry sort of specialist. The 3 questions they were not asking were the following questions. And remember, the people who were running these tended to mostly be men. They tended to mostly be engineers or salespeople or finance people. So it was head of finance, head of sales, or head of engineering. The questions they did not ask is the future of automobiles hardware or software? Most of them were hardware experts. Is the future of automobiles internal combustion or electric? They were internal combustion engines. And is the future of automobiles about owning cars or access to transportation? They were salespeople. The 2 companies that asked the question came from outside their category, Tesla and Uber, whose market cap is greater than all those companies combined. Everybody knew. I mean, come on, everybody knew. But nobody took it seriously because nobody could understand that technology and change is the slingshot that allows David to bring down Goliath. Again and again and again, and it's happening now again. And my whole stuff is, when do people wake up? Because exactly that same seismic shift is happening for the reasons I spoke at this morning. And once again, we're all pretending that we can't get defeated and we can only win. And we aren't basically going into that the opportunities and threats always come from outside a category. Gillette did not see Dollar Shave Club coming. IBM did not see MS-DOS. Microsoft did not see the Google search engine. Google did not see Facebook. Facebook thought they had social network and you needed a network, and they didn't see TikTok. So people come completely, what they basically say is, your business model, the way I look at it is, your moat is how I will, you look at your moat as what prevents me from getting into your castle. I look at it as your moat as a way to flood you out of your castle. Which is why you have to build the case for the exact opposite. And world-class companies, when they start thinking that way, they go into attack mode. And most of the companies have been built by people who used to be in attack mode. But now they've become big, so they go into defensive mode. And in times of changing circumstances, you have to be in attack mode. You can't be in defensive mode only. It's not you can't be defense, you can't only be defense. So the second way of upgrading operating is the exactly opposite. The third one is going out of your way to look for feedback. And I'm going to end with the following feedback rules. The first one, which was a chapter in my first book, and it's the favorite chapter of both my bosses who I worked for 25 years. And the chapter is called The Turd on the Table. So people have seen my first book. It's called The Turd on the Table. And that is how many times we're in a meeting where people are having a conversation, and you're new to the business, let's say, you're sitting there. Everybody's gathering around, and they're talking about this brownie on the table. How moist is it? How tasty it is? And you're looking at it, and you're saying, this is a goddamn piece of shit. This is goddamn, someone's come and shat on the table, and they're talking about it like it's a goddamn brownie. It smells like a piece of shit. No one's actually eating it, but they're all talking about how great it is. So you sit there and you basically say, is there something wrong with me? Because I'm new. Maybe this is the next generation brownie, brownie 2.0. Maybe it's brownie.ai, who the hell knows? Right? Or could it be that I just don't understand? Or in many cases, I know it's a piece of shit, but if I tell people it's a piece of shit, they'll make me clean it up, and I'm already cleaning up enough shit. So the whole organization talks about trust and truth, and they all live in some other thing where they think the turd is the actual brownie. So I've always basically said, many companies say, we got trust and we got openness. I said, how come everybody's scared? How can you have trust and openness and innovation in your company? People are running scared. Your whole goddamn business is built on fear, and you think you're going to get to the future? Bullshit. You're just going racing to the past. Right? It's exactly what, and you'll see that those are the legacy things. So one is have very open, look for that as a feedback signal. So if you begin to see people are not giving you feedback, be very careful. That means something is off. The other one is ask yourself, even if people aren't giving feedback, you should both ask for and give feedback. And it's very, very simple. When you've done something, you say, how did it go? What did you like? What did you not like? What can I do better? Right? The other is in every meeting, and this is what the Navy SEALs do, at the end of every project, even when they go on a training project, they all come back into the room, and the senior most officer asks the junior most person a simple question. What could we have done better? Not what went wrong, not who's to blame. What could we have done? Even if it's gone really well, what could we have done better? The same thing happens with the Blue Angels. If you look at the movie, what could we have done better? And we go anti-rank. It's the youngest one, or the most senior, least senior, to the most senior. Because if the most senior goes first, then everybody says, boss said this, she said that, so we have to align with that. So it's basically going and saying, what could we have done better? Not like what went wrong, why is everybody screwing up? what went, what would be better. And then the last one as a way of feedback is ask yourself every day before you fall asleep 2 very simple questions. What was one new thing I learned today? Anything? And what was the one thing that went really right today? And what was the one thing that went wrong today? Sometimes there are many wrongs, but what are the things that went wrong today? What can I take away from it? So if you do that, you begin to have something which is very, very powerful. So the single most powerful concept in the world is a very simple thing called compound interest. Okay, give you an idea. Warren Buffett made 85% of his money after he was 65 years old. That's how compound interest works. What's very interesting, there's something else with compound interest. It's called compound improvement. If you improve every day a little bit, you get to massive improvements over time. Massive improvements over time. And over time, it gets so good, you can get really, really good. And so what tends to happen is I will sort of end this with the following thoughts and open up for 2-3 minutes of questions, and we'll be done by 5:05, giving 5 minutes for turnover, is spend an hour learning, build a case for the exact opposite once in a while, create an environment of free and open communication, and look for and seek feedback. I've written pieces on all of these on my rishad.substack.com. And for those of you, if you go to my website, which is rishadtobaccowala.com, and just add /100, it opens up a page, and there's one section called How to Learn. Like all the different things on how to learn. But because if we learn, we get better all the time. And if we learn, we get less scared. And then we have even more fun in what we basically do. So I'll open it up for a couple of questions, and otherwise I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Like I said, one last time we did it, I'll have to check if we had brownies on the dessert menu for tonight. We'll may take those off.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we got a couple minutes for questions. Any other questions for Rishad?
Good.
No worries.
Everybody's learning.
Everyone's learning. So what we'll be doing sort of about 5:40 or so, Rishad will be in the cafe receptions for a book signing as well. So you'll get a chance to further talk with the
And there are still some books left, because apparently we had book thieves.
There's book bandits out there. Don't leave boxes of books inside a cafe anywhere. Yeah, they somehow got opened, and we're 3 blocks down on one and 3 boxes down on another. So Rishad, thank you very much.
Welcome. Thank you.